Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, and I know you all know that. Folks, especially after all this time and almost 400 episodes, I just like to remind myself about how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair, to be able to do this for a living, which I never would have thought possible. The only reason I can is because of all of you and because of what you do every single day. If you're not out there liking and sharing and subscribing and, sending me all those DMs, my goodness, folks, all those DMs, especially over the last couple of weeks, you're killing me. I'm going to get back to you, all of you personally, I promise. We were moving, so give me half a break. I didn't have internet for a little while, but I'm coming. I'm going to get them all done because you people are fantastic. So thank you for everything that you do. Folks, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. It's time for us to pay a couple of bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Man, that is good stuff. And you know we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Folks, they do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which you all know are incredibly important here at the Power Man Podcast. If you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for all of your sacrifice and for everything you've done, because if you didn't go do what you have done, then I would not be able to sit here and talk the way I talk every day. And believe me, they have tried to shut me down. It's because of people like you that they can't. All right. So thank you. I love you. And I'm glad that you found a home here at the Power Man Podcast. So is Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, look them up and check them out and tell them Power of Man sent you. Now, before I dive into this, I got to take one more sip so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. Oh my gosh, good stuff. Fantastic. Folks, you're not going to believe the stories that we're going to get today. I talked to this guy for 5 minutes beforehand, and I'm already blown away. We're probably going to have him back on a couple of times because there's no way we're going to cover all this stuff in one podcast. But this gentleman, all right, has done, let's see, he did 12 years, 11 years in ministry, right? So we already got a strong start here. 24 years in the FBI. Then he did 15 years of FBI SWAT. Now, I'm not sure if any of that overlap, but we're going to find out here in a minute. But this guy has devoted his life to service in one way or another. And he is the author of an upcoming book called Irreverend, From Saving Souls to Chasing Sinners in the FBI. Folks, I cannot wait to hear more about this. And if you can't find this book, you better start looking for it now, because when it comes out, it's probably going to fly off the shelves and you may not be able to get one. Please welcome to the show, Eric Robinson. Eric, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Rory, what I want to do is to put together clips of introductions like that. So if I ever feel not as good as I should, I'm just going to listen to your smooth voice telling me how excellent and awesome I am. And then that's my daily affirmation.
I appreciate that, brother. Hey, feel free to use that clip anywhere you want, man. It's
It's
you
my
earned it.
ringtone. It's my ringtone now.
I mean, my goodness. I got to go over this just for a minute. It's 11 years of ministry. Is that right?
Yeah, 11, 12.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I think I keep getting it wrong. So it's 12 years in ministry?
I just say it doesn't because I had 12 in ministry and then 24 in the FBI. So
That makes sense. All right.
yeah.
Now, in all that time, you got 15 years of the FBI SWAT. Is like concurrent or is that part of the
Yeah.
24 years?
No, I mean, how old do you think I am? I'm not,
I didn't
it's
think you were in
it's
your 70s, man.
it overlaps. So for FBI SWAT, it's an ancillary duty. So I'm a field agent. I'm running cases, and oh, we're getting called out. We've got an operation on Tuesday. We got training on Monday, and that's done fitting into doing casework as well.
Right. Okay. Now, let me just kind of a couple of things real quick. You've got a book coming up. All right. And I know we're going to get talking about stuff. So I do not want to miss the fact that there's this book coming up. Tell us when it's coming out and a little bit about that so that we can make sure we start with that and then we'll try to end with it too and sandwich this whole thing.
And then talk about it the whole way
And
through.
we'll talk
So
about it all.
the book is called Irreverend. It'll be coming out in the fall. My wife's company, Weaving Influence Press, is publishing it and promoting it, and I'm doing my part, of course. Uh, Unfortunately for me, some paying customers jumped the line ahead of me, so they get a little first. They get first shot. All the same, right now the book has been in the hands of the FBI since January, so they can review it. So it's all on pause anyway, but the book's written. We're going through content editors, copy editors, all the usual stuff, and just getting it as shiny and polished as it can be.
Nice. Now that's interesting. I guess that was a question in the back of my head, maybe for later, but you kind of, again, jumped the line and brought that up, right now. I love it. Is that something you have to do because of your years in service, or is that something you're choosing to do to not, have issues later?
Well, I'll say this. This is my first time I've done something like that. You are supposed to do it, so they make sure you're not sharing state secrets or trade craft. At the same time, I'm like, I know I didn't write anything in there inappropriate, so what are they going to do? Although, great last words. Uh, you know, I'm not sure if they're going to read it after the fact and bring some type of civil suit, but yeah, they just go through and they check it off and make sure it's fine. It's what they do for any publication.
Okay. All right. So just because of your affiliation, it's expected to kind of have that done, or is it like, hey, you better do this or else?
Yeah, you better do this. I don't know what the threat is. I
Gotcha.
mean, I recently got my retired credentials and a plaque, and the first thing I did was take a picture and go, "Oh, this is neat. Let me take a picture." And then I read the box and says it's against the law to take pictures of this and post it on social media and stuff. And I'm like, What are you gonna do?" Like, I don't actually think it's against the law. I think you just would be angry. I don't know. So.
You better be careful with that. In some countries, they're arresting people for what they put on social media now.
Yeah, yeah. I just try to stick to glamour shots and whatnot.
There you go. All right, good deal. As I'm looking here at your story, the first question that popped into my head, and so I'd kind of just like to start here and then throw it to you, is, it's easy to sit here and go, well, I had 12 years in the ministry, and then I did this, and I did this, but, what brought you to the ministry in the first place? I mean, what was the calling like? How'd that happen to say, hey, I'm going to go do that with my life?
Well, for me, it was just a natural progression. My family always went to church. It wasn't an aggressive thing. It was just part of our identity. This is what we did. And, I was fine with it. I was always the kid in Sunday school who, knew the answers. And so I had a good Bible knowledge. In college, I started owning that faith a little bit more. And so as I graduated, I thought, well, I know the Bible. I know what's good to do. I've got the capability. That probably should be the path I go on. And so started taking those steps towards getting into ministry. So initially, my wife and I were planning on going to Muslim countries as missionaries. Some circumstances played out where it made it difficult for us to follow that path. And so we just stayed stateside. And I took that usual path of youth pastor, assistant pastor, and then eventually I was the senior pastor of a church that we planted in Western New York.
Wow. Okay. And you breezed over that like it was nothing, but you were considering going to Muslim countries to promote Christianity?
Jesus, yeah, yeah, exactly. We were going to be missionaries. So I'd spent some time, my wife and I both, in the country of Turkey as student missionaries, meeting with college students and talking to them about Jesus and doing that evangelism thing. And that seemed like a process that was purposeful and that I felt comfortable doing. A little story behind that too is I'm a couple years older than my wife. I'd gone to Turkey, came back. Now it's my senior year of college, and there were some young, pretty Christian girls sitting at a table, at a frozen yogurt shop, and I had a ring that I bought at the Turkish bazaar for me as a promise to go back to Turkey. And I took it off and I put it on the table, and I said, "Who wants to marry me and go to Turkey?" And this little curly-haired girl took it off, put it on her finger, and she said, "I'll go." And I was like, "Well, you have a boyfriend, so I don't think you're serious." And later she told me she broke up with her boyfriend. I helped her through that sad time. And a couple of years later, I put a somewhat better ring on her finger.
Wow. So that's literally how you met your wife. You walked up and said, who wants to marry me? And she jokingly said, I will.
I, I mean, when I look back, it's crazy because she had a boyfriend. And I hadn't met her there, but I mean, I just kind of I knew who she was. That was about it. But we became pen pals back when you would write on paper
Ah,
and
I
then
remember those
put
days.
it put it in an envelope. She was still in college, and there's nothing better than getting a big long letter from somebody who's trying to woo you, and it all worked out for 33 years so far.
Man, congratulations. That's fantastic. 33 years of marriage is amazing all by itself. That's, with all the other stories you have, that's a pretty good one.
That's a pretty good one. Although when people congratulate me, I'm like, well, I plan to keep going. So
It's, okay, congratulations so far
So
on
far.
the current state of the accomplishment.
Exactly.
All right, there we go. All right, I got you. All right, very cool. Now I know that you did 11 or 12 years in ministry, and then you kind of felt a different calling here. And I know you've told that story a whole bunch. Just kind of quickly, maybe, because I don't want you to have to keep telling the same story over and over and over. But you decided to make the move. A little bit
Yeah.
about that, and my biggest curiosity is, it's one thing to make a move out of ministry. It's a whole other thing to go, let me just join the FBI.
Yeah. So I made that move because I was incapable of removing the difficulties that people in my congregation brought to me from bearing that burden. So because of that, I had stress related headaches every single day for 2 years, and I just had to find something different. I applied to two jobs to start out. One I was overqualified for, and they turned me down, and I was a little annoyed. And then there one I was thought I was underqualified for, but hey, you got to take a shot with a pretty girl, or else you're never going to go on a date. And the FBI said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's bring you back on." I think that there's a good chance that because my application was in process as 9/11 hit, that they go,
Oh,
"Oh, okay, this guy, has experience working with Muslims. Maybe we'll think of him too." At the same time, the FBI tries to be diverse in who it hires. So could have been some of this, some of that. At the same time, here's my experience working with Muslims, and they stuck me on a drug squad in Chicago. So started there.
okay. If you can survive the drug squad in Chicago, then we'll send you out for the other stuff.
Sure. I ended up working counterterrorism not till the end of my career, where
No
I was
kidding.
like, I forgot all this stuff.
No kidding. I know you have a zillion stories on that, but what was the progression, of that? I mean, you started in Chicago, fighting drugs, but is that just random? They have a see a need, fill a need. We need a guy here. Here you go.
Absolutely, it is many times. So, and then also I've been in places where management, instead of have a need, fill a need, has gone to, hey, we need to fill this. We're gonna canvas and try to find the best people to fill it and go from there.
Hmm.
At least in 2002 in Chicago, they're like, hey, we need bodies on the dope squad. You're new. You're going to the drug squad, and for me, it was great. I mean, it was an exciting way to start my career of running around the streets of Chicago, exciting cases, late nights. I think we probably were on 40 or 50 phone taps over 5 years. So, that was a lot of experience to learn how to do casework in the FBI.
Wow. Okay. My goodness. I gotta ask too. What'd your wife have to say about this change?
So, we work closely together in ministry, and now not only was I kind of branching off and leaving her at home, started having kids at that time, but also, I'm gone sometimes late. I made sure that I wasn't, going to the bars, golfing all weekend, or shutting out the family. So I tried to be at home as much as I could be at home, with the proposed understanding that if I can't, it's because it needs to be this way. And when I can, I'll be here. And we had an instructor in Quantico who told us, hey guys, be careful. Law enforcement's hard on a marriage. I'm on my fifth marriage. And I thought, no, that's you. That's you. That's not law enforcement.
Yeah. What role did your faith play in keeping all that together?
Well, it's the priorities. It's all the faith was there, and it just intermingled with values and what you see as important, what I saw as important. So I value family high, and so I also value commitment to my squad mates and my teammates. So there's a place for that, and I'm going to give it to them fully. And if I've got to be out all night because we got to watch a garage where dope is located and somebody's going to pick it up at an unknown time, all right, you're going to miss me that night. And that's how it is. Now I'm back and
Hmm.
I'm here with the family.
Right. Interesting. The when you're in the FBI, especially, I've always wondered this. I've talked to a lot of cops about this kind of thing, because you kind of, I mean, you don't ever get to stop being a cop or stop being an FBI agent. How do you just detach and go home? You know what I mean? Because it's like the criminals are going to at some point know who you are, find out who you are, get an idea of. I mean, that just seems like an incredibly tepid sort of fight or flight lifestyle.
Well, a couple things to that. One is, at least for me, even different than policing. So policing has many different and greater hardships than being an FBI agent of the things that you've got to encounter, the constant rubbing up against some of the bad people in society. Whereas the FBI, we're in the office and now we choose the time when we go out. However, my phone was always on me, plugged in by my bed. I'm on 24/7. And even if I wasn't eventually called out. I mean, there's times where, especially on SWAT, we'd get a soft warning order of like, "Hey guys, we may be called out." And now my Saturday sucks because I can't go out, can't do this, got to stay nearby. So it's nice to be away from that. Um, Otherwise, as far as the threat to life, that can be there. Curiously, one thing I found is the bad guys hated the prosecutors more than the agents. And it's funny because if they went to trial, they saw that prosecutor as somebody who's like doing more to condemn them than me, who gathered all the evidence for them to condemn them. So I think they would more frequently catch the wrath of the criminals, whereas legitimately most times guys are like, "You're doing your job, and I'm doing my job."
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's just a very that's a crazy mentality. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you do that, but power to you, man, for getting through that all those years. But especially with the SWAT, situation. What made you want to, sign on to SWAT? Was it just not, exciting enough doing the dope stuff?
Do you not hear the silliness in your question? Being
As a
being
guy, as a
being on
guy, I hear it.
right, being on SWAT is the coolest thing.
Okay.
This is crazy because right now, and I got to see my buddies a day ago. Right now, our SWAT team is holding their tryouts, and so guys come. We've got a woman on the team now too, and she's awesome. But guys come, and part of the tryout, among the many strenuous things, is there's a quick interview. And one of the questions we ask is, why do you want to be on the team? And many of them, most of them say, well, I want to be part of that camaraderie, some of that brotherhood. And they'll walk out and we'll go, that's the right answer, but they don't even know. When you spend hours next to a guy, when you've legitimately gone through life and death situations, even if it, you know, may not feel like a life and death situation, when you've survived that and supported each other, that's huge bonding there. And that's why those guys are the people I'm closest to because we sacrificed for each other. Nobody was killed, nobody was seriously harmed, but we were sacrificing to protect the other person. And so that builds trust, that builds the bonding of knowing that you will support me and I don't have to request it from you. I sense that if I make this move and I'm exposed, you're right there doing what you need to do to cover me from injury.
Nice. Nice.
Get it?
Yeah. As a guy, of course, I'm going, I mean, it's the coolest thing in the world. I get it, but
Absolutely.
I just didn't know if there was a more,
What?
spiritual answer or anything. So I love the fact that that was it, man,
Right.
because
Well,
it's
and
cool.
it is. And part of it too is on SWAT, I'm getting regular training in tactics and firearms. So I am a better agent.
Hmm.
And now when I'm doing things with my squad, not with SWAT, they're looking to me to say, "Hey, Eric, how should we set this up?" Because they have a pretty good understanding, but I've been there 1,000 times. And also I've gotten those repetitions and trainings to say, we're going to do this to that to that. So it's that brotherhood, but it's also I can walk away knowing I'm fully competent in what I'm doing, and others will look to me to assist them in being competent too.
Nice. Now everybody, has an idea of, SWAT from like the TV show, the movies, things like this, and everything else. As someone who was on it, and actually speaking, what does like real life SWAT get called out to do? Can you give us a story or example of like, hey, this is what we really go out and do right here?
Yeah, absolutely. So at least with the FBI, there's a threat matrix where a supervisor can always call and say, "Hey, we'd like you to do this for us," and that can be abused, but usually it's not. So doesn't matter. They can just. We had one where supervisors said, I have a bad feeling. It was a um, sexual uh, child sexual exploitation case. And then there's times where gang member, past criminal history, cameras, guns, fortified location, that complicated terrain. So if those things are there, then SWAT is called because we have more tools, we have better training, we have robots, we have drones, we have a 12-foot ram on the end of a ballistic rated Bearcat. So there's things that we can do that other agents just don't even have access to. So that allows for greater safety. And the one case where we had the supervisor call us in was a 26-year-old kid who had been trading in child sexual abuse material. So right there, now in the FBI, that's kind of raised the threat level because those guys are going to bring violence to themselves or us. They just don't want to go. Um, Kid had a history of physical altercations with the police, and so supervisor said, "Hey, would you guys mind?" So we came out, did our usual surround and then call out, and it was me and two other operators, Jason and Steve, covering the side and back of the house. And pretty quickly, Steve called out, "Throw down the bat." So the kid had kicked out a window on the first floor and was slowly making his way deliberately towards us with a bat in his hand. And we have our deadly force policy, and there's things you want to do and things you want to probably not kill a kid for. And we gave him every opportunity to put down the bat and just surrender until he charged around us, bat overhead, yelling, "Kill me," as he came to strike my buddies. And he died. We quickly rendered aid, but he was dead, when shot. And I asked Steve, "How long do you think that was after things had calmed down?" And he said, "I don't know, maybe about 5 minutes." And I said, "Yeah, that sounds right, but I bet it's a lot less." And then we go back and look. Ours was the first FBI shooting with body cameras, and it was a minute and a half. And it very easily felt like 5 minutes. And I remember being a little angry with my teammates because I was calling for a hands team in case the kid threw the bat down that we're going to have to rush him and wrestle him. And I remember being pissed off that they didn't show up. And then when I watched the body cam, it's 10 seconds. Like they were just looking for their opportunity and then they moved. And when the shooting took place, they were right behind us and just jumped right in. And I'm not being distracted. I want to show you something that goes with that. This is this is part of being ready. This is part of preparing. So if you can see this,
Hmm.
you can tell me the minute we got into a shooting with this kid
Yeah,
because you see the heart rate spike 178 beats a minute and then it goes down.
right.
And if my heart rate had stayed up at 180 and plateaued, well, I wouldn't be here because I'd probably be dead from a heart attack.
Right.
But through experience, through physical fitness, but through experience because we've been there, heart rate spikes because my body says, "You've got something you got to take care of. I'm going to give you what you need."
Yeah.
And then that's over. And the body says, "Okay, now you got to calm down because we still have to clear this house." And so now I got to get back to, all right, let's just do CQB. Let's just go through the house and make sure it's clear. And then we're going to call them from there.
Wow. That's SWAT in the real world right there.
That's SWAT. And nobody wanted to kill the kid. It,
Sure.
it just in our deadly force policy, we engage when there's an imminent threat of death or bodily harm to ourselves or others. And there's nothing in the law that says it's just a bat. Go ahead and take that nerve damage as he hits you in the neck. You know, so it was his decision. It wasn't ours.
Right. Do you find you get blowback on that? Like, hey, it was just a bat. Why did you, all the weekend warriors and people who were sitting in their armchairs quarterbacking?
No, there's a shoot review in every FBI shooting. So 20 people come in as inspectors. It's their FBI, but they go through, do the interviews. In this case, for the first time, reviewed body cameras, and it was so very clear that every opportunity was given. Hey, man, drop the bat, drop the bat. He's not complying. We're even retreating, which we don't have to do, but we're still doing to try to give him that chance until finally there's nothing left where the last action is bat over the head and charging. So yeah, we were cleared on that pretty quickly. But it was interesting because at that time, the shoot review team, part of their progression is saying, how many operations, how many arrests, search warrants have you been a part of? And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe 1,000? Because I knew I'd been on a lot,
Wow.
but then I
Yeah.
start tallying them together between SWAT and an agent. I'm like, yeah, definitely in the many hundreds. And that's just to see, hey, were you prepared? Should
Right.
you have been there?
Right. Well, I'm glad that you don't feel like there's like a persecution there. Has that changed over time? I'm curious.
I think it has changed to be a little more scrutiny than wide open in the past. So now I don't know when the shoot reviews came about. I know it's been for because I had a buddy who killed a guy and he had a shoot review, and that was 15 years ago. So I know it's been around for a while, but the FBI, if anything, has gained better practices through the years, learning from military, learning from law enforcement as well, of what should we do in this situation.
Right. Is there any instance or any story that you haven't had a chance to kind of recount, up till now? And if that doesn't come up, maybe you have a favorite one that you don't mind telling over and over. Because the last thing I want is for you to be like, here we go again, another podcast where I got to tell this story. But I'm sure, like I said, thousands of them. I mean, you got to have all kinds of stuff. But I'm
Well,
curious, like, what some of the like really crazy ones might have been.
well, thousands of them, but then it's always like I don't remember them until, my buddy Joe goes, "Hey, remember that guy we arrested on my case?" I'm like, you gotta get me more than that. Like, and then he knows because he's been doing this for a little while. He's like, remember there was like a wheelchair ramp in the back, and like, okay, now that stands out.
Right. You
Just
got to have a little jog to the memory.
yeah, but I mean, part of being on so many operations where instead of just being an agent and working my cases or pitching in here and there, is I'm jumping in on so many other agents' cases, and so it's very voyeuristic to go into someone's house when they haven't tidied up the place for you. They're not ready for you.
Right.
And I mean, I remember this is my buddy Joe's case, where we sent the drones in, and we send those in to passively clear to make sure people aren't hiding. We can call them out, and our negotiators are on the PA then trying to call out this girl who was hiding in the bathtub and wouldn't come out. Except it wasn't a human girl. It was one of many sex dolls that, this guy had around his house. And
Mm.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff you just encounter constantly where you think, oh my gosh, you know, I get that people have ways that they want to live, but, from everything of like, there's so many places where like those two rooms are the ones that the dogs defecate in, and that's just how we live. Um, I mean, houses that don't have working plumbing anymore. And I had a buddy once say, yeah, like once you decide you're going to start going two in the tub, you know your life has gone downhill.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I mean, we have had like professionally made sex tables. It used to be said that, in the FBI, it's not a search warrant until you find the porn magazines, except, that quickly went away. And now it's all electronic devices. But
Right.
it's when you get inside people's houses, you get a sense of, I'm not sure how folks live like this, of Mountain Dew cans, like all the way up to the edge of the bed. And rattling because there's animals somewhere underneath there too. Um, Crazy stuff that at the end of the day, I go home, hug the kids, and say, "I'm sorry, I'm hard on you about cleaning your room."
Honestly, it's as a dad, that kind of me being a dad always sort of colors everything that I talk about on my show. And
Yeah.
so everybody has a place they come from. As I hear stuff like that, I have to wonder, how do you deal with that every day, day in, day out, and then go home and somehow, try to be a normal, like dad, hug your kids, type of thing. I mean, what's that transition like?
Well, there has to be a balance because I can't harden myself to it so much so that I'm useless to my family. Like
Right.
I'm just hard all the time, and I can't break down crying because the SWAT guys aren't going to take kindly to that. Is like Eric's always bawling every time we go in the house. So
Yeah.
you have to be in there, and I found that self-reflection is most helpful, where I have to not be impacted by what I see, but it's almost like rolling with a punch where, yep, that hit me, and I'm going to move with it so the impact isn't as hard. And that moving with it is now coming back and just considering what I just saw, thinking through what are the circumstances for this person, trying to have some curiosity about that. And then also, what agents so often do is now we tell stories, and that sharing of stories is kind of a survivor's therapy where we are talking about crazy things, traumatic things, harsh things, even life and death things. And I think those telling of the stories are, and here we are. Yep, that happened. That could have been bad, and here we are.
Right. The book then, if I can go back to that for a minute, is irreverent. Is this a collection of stories? Is that kind of what you're putting together? And what's the purpose of putting this all together in that book?
Well, for me, the purpose is considering what it would be like if some crazy social scientist went to his team and said, I want to grab this Baptist pastor who's never handled a firearm and I want to stick him in the FBI and let's see what happens. Because I'm nothing special. I got to do special things, but I'm like many other FBI agents. I'm fairly smart. I'm not a genius. I know what to do. I'm not the master of it, but I'm a guy who learned along the way. And these things that I got to do, as I look back, I think, as we talk about these stories, I think, guys, we're laughing about this, but that's amazing. This story that you're telling me for the third time, I've already heard this, but like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And so it's a thread of I was a Baptist pastor, I was a man of faith, and this is me going through my career in the FBI, starting out with, hey, here's how I had to transition. Here's what ministry was like. And now that guy is going through the process of learning how to be an FBI agent and getting to experience some remarkable things.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the book coming out. I know a lot of people are too, and I think it's really cool that your wife's going to go ahead and put it out there. But yeah, if you're a little late on the date, you really can't complain to the publisher.
No, I can, but it
Good
doesn't
luck.
matter.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly right. But give me her company name one more time.
it's Weaving Influence, and of course, the publisher is Weaving Influence Press.
Nice. Okay. So make sure we're giving the wife's company a plug, for sure.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
that usually gets a better review on the podcast, when we do that. So as you've gone through this whole thing, man, I mean, you have to spend a whole lot of time looking back, on this, all your time. Just writing the book is, I think, would be a natural time to be reviewing all of this in your life. Is there any part of this where you kind of look at it and you go, how in the world? Or why in the world? Or anything where you just stop and go, shake your head and go, what?
Yeah, I, all of these. Yeah, I mean, whether it's my case or somebody tags me to be a part of their case because I'm needed. eh, The first chapter of my book, where I now get into, hey, this is the FBI life, is it opens with me sitting down with another pastor, and I was tab to interrogate him as we arrested him and two or three other pastors who were engaged in a sex trafficking ring with a teenage girl.
Wow.
So here's me coming back to being a pastor, and me, I had prepared the very literal come to Jesus message where I had these Bible verses ready to say, hey, here's how you need to confess your sin, be right with God. And this guy's like, man, I want to be bringing Jesus into this. Like, I'll talk to you, but don't be bringing Jesus into this. And I thought that is indicative of how he lived his life. Here's a man who preached, and here's a sinful man, and they're not going to cross paths. They are compartmentalized or bifurcated. And this is we're talking to the sinful man now. Don't be bringing Bible verses into it.
How does hmm, 10 questions all came out at the same time.
Yeah,
Pardon
yeah,
me right there.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm none of us are perfect, but you know, just
Okay.
just hearing these stories, you know what I mean, makes you so angry. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And it's like I'm not even the guy sitting there talking to the pastor, but I'm already going, what? Like you just want to like reach out and grab him or something. I guess how do you handle that part of it? Where, you're sitting here trying to maintain yourself as a moralistic father and husband and whatnot. You're a former pastor. You're listening to this pastor just throw Jesus out the window and act like you can just say, "Hey, I'm not going to deal with Jesus today. I'm
yeah.
not checking in, and I'm not going to punch the clock with Jesus today, but tomorrow
Yeah.
I will." I mean, how do you
Well,
how do you throw that interview, man?
yeah, tomorrow he didn't get to. Tomorrow he was in jail.
Right.
So let's start with this. Let me salve your anger that this guy got life in prison. So
Okay.
which was crazy because he was offered, I think, 12 and a half years, and his attorney laughed and said, we're going to take our chances. And he got life in prison, which is very rare,
Okay.
especially for a case like this. So, yeah, I know that I have a job to do, and I know that if I do my job, it will make me feel better. It will bring good results. So if I go in and I just start screaming or, God forbid, start smacking the guy around, then my job's not going to get done and it's going to harm the case of like seeing this guy go to prison for life. So for me, it was easy. And when we work with the sex offenders, pedophiles, so many people, even cops would say, I don't know how you do that because I would just want to put a bullet in their head. And I think, yeah, but these guys are pathetic. Like they know they're disgusting. I don't have to tell them that. And if I came from that pastor position of I'm going to treat you like a human being, not a monster, then that's going to open them up. And they expect me to come in and say, "You're a piece of trash. You're horrible. You're better off dead." That was probably, their self unaffirmation that morning that they know this. They hate themselves. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to set that aside because I can.
Mhm.
And so many of the people who said I'd put a bullet in their head, you're like, nah, I'm pretty sure if you're in my spot, you'd find a way. And you just say, I'm going to get this guy and I'm going to do my job by putting him away for longer because he confesses. And it
Sure.
it ended up being pretty easy.
Wow. This is really interesting for me, just, as a host, because I know a lot of cops, just a ton of cops, and I know a lot of servicemen. I don't know FBI guys, and I have never met an FBI SWAT guy. So, this is a whole different kind of just aspect of
Yeah.
this for me. But, and I've asked other guys this question, and I get a myriad of answers, really. But do you feel like over the course of your career that justice has been served?
Uh, no. Uh, it served the best that I could, and it was pretty early on in my career. And I think if you asked other FBI agents, they'd tell you the same. The most difficult aspect to swallow in the FBI is knowing criminals will not be charged.
Hmm.
So here's like, for example, I had this long-term financial case. Guy stole millions of dollars. His attorney assisted in that and moved money for him through his IOLTA account, which is illegal. His accountant assisted him in this knowingly. Another attorney helped him try to sell counterfeit bonds. I mean, there's other people out there who are they're crooks. They broke the law, but they're not charged because the case isn't strong enough. Not just to not convict, but the case isn't strong enough that they won't go to trial. And so the prosecutor's like, hey, man, I can't afford to go to trial. We just need cases that are going to be pleaded out. And so it's difficult to see people where you're a horrible person, you broke the law, you harm people, and
Well,
there we go.
yeah, I appreciate that answer. I mean, that's a very, honest answer. I appreciate that very much. I know a lot of guys think about that. Do you feel like the FBI is maybe more complicated than these other branches based on like what you do and how you do it and the people you're going after?
Yeah. So part of that too is I think with cops, they may have an intuition or some indication that someone else is guilty, but cops just have to police. So put a blindfold on you, spin you around, and shove you in there, and you know deal with this. Whereas the FBI, I'm taking 6 to 40 months to look into this, so I know this guy's done this. I know this guy's done that. And we've got that. We're tasked to do a more thorough and broad and deeper investigation. Cops can't do that. They just got to they don't have time. There's too many of these crimes where they've got to sweep them up and just take care of what's in front of them.
Yeah. Okay. I know that one of the things that I hear a lot about, just in terms of current events and stuff like that, and I'll be careful here, I promise, because I know that hey, when you're a member of the FBI, you still gotta be careful, what you're saying. But a lot of folks are just very frustrated that it seems like you can kind of see who's done what and what's happening in the world, especially with, our government and all these other people, in so many different instances. I won't get into any one of them. And I think one of the biggest frustrations people have is it's like, okay, when is anybody ever going to get prosecuted? Because if this was me, I'd be in jail 6 times. You know,
Yeah.
is that just something that people are misunderstanding, do you think, in terms of what has to get done? Or are people kind of right to be like, hey, you know what, maybe more should be getting done? And what can you speak to on that very, very respectfully?
Oh, I think people are right. Like if you're upset because you think that guy should have gotten pardoned, these people are being able to do things they shouldn't. Um, the worst thing that could ever happen to an FBI agent is somebody further up the chain, influenced by somebody further up the chain from him, starts getting involved in your case. And so the great vast majority of your cases are just this guy in my community did this, and I'm going to charge him. And then there's ones that start to touch um, a place where somebody in DC has an interest. And that could be within our group, or that could be somebody outside contacting the higher ups in the FBI. And at that point, it's not me and my supervisor, my first level supervisor deciding we're going to open a case on, a former Secretary of State or a congressman or something. Like there's a lot that has to get signed off. And then there's the prosecutors where they've got their own chain where folks are going to say, yeah, we're not going to touch this, even if we're interested. So eventually, if you go far enough up and somebody has their own interest in it, then there's there's a reason to say, why isn't somebody doing anything about this? And like they're probably been told to stand down.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate that answer as well. So it kind
Yeah,
of
you
sounds
shouldn't.
like
It sucks.
sounds like we should just kind of get used to the fact that that's how it is, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. All right, brother. Well, I'll tell you what, the book is coming out this fall. That's fantastic. I love the stories. We got time for maybe one more, thing, one more sort of anecdote from Eric. What's maybe a story or a lesson or anything over your career that stands out to you that you want to kind of leave people with, that sort of thing.
Well, my favorite story is one, and I feel like this is kind of how it worked with me. I mean, I got to be well trained. I got to be a SWAT operator. I wasn't a cop before, but I got to learn along the way, and I am a student of people. And I felt like that came out in one case that I had where in Toledo, Ohio, a colleague of mine had a case on a pimp who was trafficking underage girls. Well, he's put in jail, but while he was in jail, he was using his jail calls to contact some of the witnesses, some of the victims, and try to influence them. So, coworker says, "Hey, can you have all of the pimp's calls routed to your phone so that you can monitor them and see what he's doing?" And the pimp's name was Lucky. So I had that, and I soon found that he was dealing in Oxycontin from the jail, using his uncle as someone who would pick him up, steal it, a buddy who was running for him. I ended up getting his mother charged and his girlfriend and two other people. So I took this case that was a pretty good case of sex trafficking and broadened it to so many other people. And so because of that, when it was time for the takedown, my colleague says, you get to pick, great job. Who do you want to arrest? And I said, I want Monica. I want the girlfriend because I already had something in mind. I'd listened to all these calls and it drove me crazy. So we go out to pick up Monica in this small town in Ohio. And I stop by the sheriff's office first and I say, hey, I'm going to go arrest this person. Do you have a place where we can do a post-arrest interrogation? And the duty sergeant says, yeah, man, I know that family. She's not talking to you. And I said, we'll see. So we pick her up without incident, bring her back. And I had a series of calls that I wanted to play for Monica. And normally, of course, you start out with reading their rights. I didn't even do that. I just said, this is who I am. This is what I've been doing. I've been listening to your boyfriend jail calls. I'm going to play you some calls. I want you to tell me about them. And I play the first one, woman's voice. And it's Lucky and this woman telling each other how much they love each other. And she goes, well, that's not even me. And I said, I'm sorry. And I play the next one. And it's the same thing. Different voice, same thing. And I think I only got to three. And I had like a dozen ready. And she says, what do you want to know? So I mean, this was great. Like I looked at these two and I'd heard the calls between them, and I knew Monica was a Spitfire. And I also knew that she had a domestic violence charge against her for stabbing the guy. So Lucky was probably 5'6" and 100 pounds, and Monica was more than that. And I'm like, here's somebody who's tired of standing up for her boyfriend. I don't have to prove to her she's guilty. I just have to show her there's no point in standing up for this guy. And it was
Yeah.
great. And and I was thinking, like, if you can get a confession and have fun, hey,
And have fun. What the
right.
cops say after that one?
Well, they were amazed. We were driving back to lockup back in Toledo, and I was on the phone with the prosecutor, and Monica says, "Give me the phone." So I give her the phone. She says, "I will testify on one condition. I'm first one on the stand." So I knew
Okay.
I'd done my job well.
Wow, man. It's amazing the levels of stuff you end up having to deal with, in your job. But that's
Right.
that's a great story.
And you got to bring some creativity into it too.
I mean, you gotta. And like you said, if you can have fun doing it, then why not?
Why not?
I love it, man. I appreciate you handling, all the different questions and just delving into all these different pieces of it. You've got the book coming out in the fall. It's Irreverend, from saving souls to chasing sinners in the FBI. We're all looking forward to that. Eric Robinson, man, thank you so much for being here with us today, brother. Give us all of your contact information, website, all that fun stuff. How can people reach you?
My social security number is 27.
Stop.
Let's get come on, Rory. Let's get intimate here. Let's get intimate. Uh, you can reach me on Instagram at _Eric_Robinson. Crazy that one wasn't taken, but here I am. On LinkedIn, I'm Eric Robinson. I think if you throw FBI in the search bar, you'll probably find me. I am the first Eric Robinson in the FBI. So there's that.
Wow.
And also, if you want to keep track of when my book's coming out and some other fun stuff I'll put on there, I have a website. It is, hold on, are you ready for this? It's preachertobreacher.com.
Nice. Okay, gotcha. All right, wonderful. Eric, thank you, man, for coming on, for telling your stories, and just for being all open and honest and authentic with everybody. I know everybody who heard this had a great time, and I really appreciate you coming on today, brother. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, Rory. Thanks.
Thank you. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Power of Man podcast. The reason we bring these powerful men on here to have these powerful conversations is because we are absolutely united in trying to help you folks find your power so that you can become a better protector, better provider, better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can become a better husband, better father, better man tomorrow than you are today. Sometimes just so you can have a little bit of fun, listen to some awesome stories by some fantastic people. But folks, the reason that we want this for you is because you matter. It's because you have value, and it's because you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.